Yeah, and that beautiful blue background too.
That
Hello, everybody.
That's the God's work.
Sorry, everybody. We were talking about Steven Sundead. Hey, everybody, and welcome to Catalyst Story Road for this very special conversation about real stories and tangible actions with Steven Adams. My name is Philip Gilpin Jr. I'm the CEO and Executive Director of Catalyst, and I'll be working behind the scenes over the next hour to take your questions. So if there's anything you want to ask, just put it in the comments box here on YouTube and Facebook, and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can later on this hour. And at this time, I'd like to hand it over to our host for the evening, Miss Mary Lynn Suchan.
Thank you, Philip. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I know this time right now is emotionally, physically, mentally extremely draining for many of you watching. So I thank you for taking the time to watch this. And Steven, I thank you for your energy in participating with me today. At home, if you have questions but are feeling a little nervous or anxious about posting in the comments area, because maybe it's a difficult question and you're afraid of putting it out there, I encourage you to use the email at the bottom of the screen, office@catalyststories.com, because I really want an open and honest dialogue. And that means all of the opinions that are out there, we need to talk about them. We need to hear them. So I encourage you to please use that. And before we dive in, Steven, let me give you a little background on Steven. There is a large bio in the description below, but yes, the whole 9 yards. I did my research. But a little bit about Steven. So Steven Adams, a founding partner at Alta Global Media, is an award-winning manager and producer. He's a producer on the Netflix original adaptation of Roger Guenveur Smith's solo performance piece, RODNEY KING, and the Peabody Award-winning A Huey P. Newton Story for Starz. Recently, he collaborated on the marketing of 2 seasons of Spike Lee's hit series, She's Gotta Have It, and the Academy Award-winning BLACKKKLANSMAN. So thank you again, Steven, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I think what's crazy is I've been producing this festival a few years now, and so I know you from that, but we don't get the chance, with me running around you speaking on all the panels and stuff, we don't get a chance to sit down and talk about backstory and where we're from and everything. So that conversation you and I had last week really opened my eyes to a different perspective in the story that even I wasn't thinking of. A lot of times we go right for the people trying to break in and how we can elevate new voices. But here you are, an award-winning manager, producer, an accomplished host, a member of the PGA, the Television Academy, an advisory board member of several festivals. And yet you've shared with me moments of discrimination with all of that experience. So can you share some of those experiences with our audience today?
Yeah, I mean, rather than talking about individual instances, which I think really at the end of the day are it's like describing pathology. I'd rather focus on the cure.
I love that. Okay.
You know what I mean? We know that America has a problem with racism. We know that some of it is very visible and aggressive. Some of it's invisible and even unconscious. Some of it's so systemic that people don't realize it's there. I think that's probably something to talk about, which is that, that there are forces at work against some lives and not against others. And yet there they are. Someone like me could be on their way home from a meeting in Beverly Hills and be stopped by the police and put in handcuffs, and the colleagues won't. It's those kinds of differences that need to be talked about. That, profiling, subconscious biases, the fact that, we have millions of people sending out great, heartfelt messages in the press, but their boardrooms are still 65% white male.
Right.
These are we need to talk about solutions. I mean, I get it. People work with what's familiar, what is near them, but people need to wake up. There's a lot of opportunities. And if I'm going to speak in terms of Hollywood, there's a lot of money being left on the table because they're not thinking in terms of breaking down some of these subconscious biases. And, that goes for gender and all sorts of other kinds of differences as well. But Black people are usually the ones who are at the forefront and people follow.
Right. Yeah. So are there moments at this point where you're seeing the changes in the action taking place?
I think this moment is an interesting opportunity for the mainstream of the country to do its evolution. Because the fact of the matter is, I think if you talk about someone of color, we are brought up to defend ourselves against this and to navigate it. It is not something that is fun to do when you are a successful family who's done all the right things and brought up your children the right way, yet you worry about where they go at night because they might be treated like a common criminal. Not that a common criminal even should be killed, by the way.
Right.
It's just too much. It's too much. And I think we've reached a breaking point. I think we're at this crazy convergent moment where the gods have conspired to have us, removed from everything and then throw this in our faces so that we can't stop looking away. Because we have. As a group, we have. This is not the first murder we've seen on Facebook. Or rape. Or abuse. They're all there. It's astonishing when you see the sheer number of these things and how little has been done about it.
Yeah. That must make it difficult for you to have gone on that long, especially in our industry, hearing companies say they support the Black community and they're taking initiatives, but not actually see it come to fruition.
It doesn't make it difficult for me because I'm not dependent upon other people. I think one of the things that we learn about Hollywood in general is this: I don't care what your situation is. Make yourself subject to a gatekeeper, then that's your problem. And that goes for anybody. I don't care whether you're, the most beautiful, perfect creature that everybody wants. You can still, we're not in the 50s. You don't have to be Marilyn Monroe, submitting to the casting couch. You don't have to wait for people to greenlight you. You don't have to wait for somebody to assign value to you. That's the beauty of the digital age. And I'm talking about the last 5 to 10 years.
Right.
That everybody has a better chance to define the life they want if they want to. And that becomes a matter of sheer will. And, I also found that in facing these obstacles, it also made me look at what was possible. I wound up doing things like theater, which people thought were, was crazy. But, when you have a show that you own or you're part of and it becomes a series, then you move on with the series. So another door opens. You have to not let anything stop you. And that becomes no matter what anybody's done, or is trying to do.
Right. That feels very inspiring, but I'm sure there are still people at home saying, but I still feel the barriers holding me back from getting out there and doing what I want to do because of my skin color, because I might not be taken as seriously, or I don't have the experience because I can't get the experience, and that catch-22.
They better call me and I'll give them a damned internship and we'll figure it out.
Okay, everyone.
Because I'm honestly not into describing obstacles today. I'm bored with that. I refuse to let that be a definition of my life, and I'm not going to co-sign on it for anybody else's. Okay. And for me, that goes across the board in the creative field. If you're a creative individual and you know it, then you have a set of God-given abilities, and it's your job to put them to work, no matter what you've been faced with as an obstacle. And the fact of the matter is, if you look at Black culture, which is probably the guiding force of the world at this point, and it has been for centuries, that's happened despite the greatest efforts of our oppressors.
Right.
Europe and the United States have done their best to crush people of color, and yet look what's been accomplished. So, in many ways, it's a dark gift to have those obstacles because it makes you stronger.
Yeah, and with you and your company, you've gone international and have reached people all over the world because that was your solution to build your company.
That was my solution because I felt like, if I wasn't getting the responses I wanted to get from the United States, then I'd look to the rest of the world, where the malignance of conscious bias and unconscious bias wasn't so prevalent, or at least it was different. As an American, I go somewhere in another country and I'm seen as an American first,
right,
with an interesting heritage, not someone of color who's a threat or could be a murderer or a criminal or someone who needs to be suppressed.
Yeah, that reminds me, I studied abroad in Germany in college, and there was a woman who is Black and had said, people ask me, what is my background? And I tell them I'm American. And they're like, no, but what are you? And she's like, but I was born in America. I'm American. And that's what I am.
Yeah, I think there's too much put on that. I mean, the whole notion of race is such a construct, particularly especially in something America has embraced. You can scratch the surface of any person that you know, no matter what their background is, and you're going to find multiple ethnicities and multiple cultures streaming together. Whiteness is a myth, so is blackness.
Mm-hmm.
So, you don't tell somebody in Nigeria they're the same as somebody in South Africa. Even inside of Nigeria, there are differences, and they should all be respected.
Right.
But we don't lump all these people together in the world any more than I could tell somebody in England they're the same as somebody in Russia. That's not real.
Yeah. Right. So with all of your clients and everything, how do you empower them to navigate the injustices and to find alternate routes?
Well, when you empower yourself, when you make
Mm-hmm.
yourself valuable, when you know that you're worthy and you know that listen, anything you do in this business, you need to come in talking, you need to have a value equation when you put yourself on the table. I don't ask anybody for anything. I don't come in as a beggar. I don't come in as someone with a laundry list of what I want. And I would say that would go for anybody, even the whitest client. I would tell them, do not come in with a shopping list of what you need. Come in with a list of what you have to offer.
Mm.
That goes for anybody.
Right.
And, I think there's a tendency to want to infantilize people in the creative world anyway, and make them dependent upon, gatekeepers. I mean, that was the studio system until, listen, not even 10 years ago. That's the way it went. You were lucky to get into a studio, you got into the lot, drove to your parking space, got into your office, you got into the place, the meeting was at 3, and then you would sit there until 3:30, 3:45, and then you were allowed to come in, and you sat in a chair that was smaller than the person you were talking to, so you'd have to look up at them. And that's the way things worked.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just the way the thing was constructed. It was, you had studios, networks, and the point of access was agents. And agencies were closed worlds too.
Mm-hmm.
And then along came something, called the internet, and then, social media, and here we are. And then people took their own power, and I love this moment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super powerful that we have so many different platforms to reach and get messages out, and also receive it and discuss it and analyze it.
Exactly. I mean, I think that at this point in time, if you're ignorant, it's because you've chosen to be. If you don't know about something, it's because you don't want to know.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you're open, the world is fascinating. I mean, look at what's happened in television since, say, for example, for us in the United States, when Narcos came on. It proved that Americans would watch a show that was largely in Spanish and be fascinated by it. And that has opened up the world. Then you've got Netflix to do. The number one show on Netflix is Money Heist, which is out of Spain. The number 2 show is Fauda, which is half Hebrew and half Arabic. So, people's minds are open. Again, we start talking about gatekeepers. There's a lot of traditional power players who thrive because they were deciding what was valuable and what wasn't. They ignored the facts.
Right.
We've been long told, for example, that black films don't travel. But I lived in France when I was young, and I remember seeing lines down the Champs-Élysées for Eddie Murphy movies.
Mm.
And I saw that in Spain. I saw it in England. I'm like, so how can it be that this didn't travel? Because it did around the world.
Right.
There was Sam Jackson, the same thing for, Lawrence Fishburne and many other people. Whoopi Goldberg's movies at a certain point were doing the same thing. I brought this up in a lab at Sundance, and I was told that those were exceptions because they were movie stars. And my response was, all movie stars are an exception.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, there's nothing more for me to learn from you, because all you're doing is reinforcing prejudices, and I'm going to respectfully decline from this particular lab and move on to something that actually makes sense to listen to.
Right. Yeah. Do you find when you're abroad that our content here is received differently, or are they shocked abroad with your clients that there are so many biases and racism still existing here?
Well, I think that the United States is a long way to go. I mean, I think it's an embarrassment. I think the fact of the matter is our racism has now become an issue of foreign policy and national security. You're starting to become compared to Russia and China. You have to figure out what to do.
Right.
We have more prisoners here than 25% of the world's prisoners, and we're 5% of the world's population. And most of those people are in prison based on infractions to do with drugs or the 3 strikes law. So we've designed a system that fills itself up and it makes money. Those are legal prisoners, those are legal slaves. They also work for corporations. You can do yourself a favor and look up the corporations that actually profit from slave labor and make a decision whether you want to give them your money.
Yeah.
But we have a system that is profiting from, 1 million legal slaves plus. That's a lot of labor. So that, we have got to open our eyes to the fact that that is the construct we live in. And if we don't like it, then saying it makes you feel bad doesn't do a damn thing. You've got to change the laws.
Right.
And I mean, I'm not beholden to people's opinions from other countries, but I do think that, it's interesting to take a perspective from another place and go, wow, at a height, this is a lot to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's way overdue.
Yeah. Absolutely. But, liberal people get comfortable in their slot and they write the right checks and they put the right press releases out. They think they're done. They're not. That doesn't change very much.
Right. Right.
It does change. Everything.
Yeah. Right. And I even see from the side I'm on in the industry that there are times where people want to boost minorities and give them a leg up in the industry and help them along in their career. But then people above them are not allowing them to do that for one reason or another, whether it's
just sheer laziness. I mean, I have no other word.
Yeah.
For it. I can't speak for those people because I'm not them, but
right.
My response to hearing that they don't know how to find people or there aren't enough of them is, I call BS on that. I mean, obviously, you've not bothered to go and look at an HBCU, of which there are quite a few, or to ask someone who's quite visible to make lists for you. It's laziness.
Yeah. No, I don't think at all that they're not out there. I think, like you're saying, it's that they're that step below, like a writer's assistant, and you're not going to give them that staff writer position because they haven't been a staff writer before.
I understand that part of it, too, is that people work with what and who they know.
Right.
I get it. It's just the natural tendency. So it does take an effort. You've got to get out of your comfort zone. Mm-hmm. Just like we have to get out of our comfort zone if we want to be successful. We have to move beyond the box that we're put in and grab what we want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I do think that, the globalization of entertainment is showing something different. I mean, Latin content, is rooted in very big numbers. African and African American, African diaspora, that's one of the biggest population blocks in the world. And we saw what that money could look like with Black Panther. And that's just touching the surface.
Right.
If people can get past their prejudices, they would find that there is so much gold waiting for them if they would pay attention to what is there. Right. And, if there's one Black superhero, there could be 50. We have hundreds of white ones. And we love them all.
Right.
So let's have some Black ones too.
Yeah. And it just makes the story richer.
Why not?
Why not? Yeah. We need to enrich our storytelling.
And more female heroes. I mean, this is all part and parcel of realizing that there's just so much beauty and power in so many kinds of people and making room for it. And the thing for me is, like, I don't believe in the scarcity mentality. There's room for everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah. The theory, if we take a breath at the same time, there's still oxygen for both of us. We're going to be just fine.
And money is a construct, baby. There's no such thing, really.
Yeah.
So there's enough for everybody.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Well, I was checking out your Instagram, and I love that your tagline on Instagram for Alta Global is inspire, engage, entertain, and educate. And then you hear the backstory on you. It's all just a very powerful way to describe your company. But so what do you think is the impact of the dialogue like this and that others in the industry should be having?
I mean, for me, it is about understanding personal value and realizing that we're all storytellers. So that's an equalizer.
Yeah.
But all stories need to be told. There have been great voices shut down by colonialism and oppression, as if there only needs to be one. And that's not true. And we miss the chance to enrich ourselves by hearing other people's stories and learning from other perspectives. And, in terms of educating, yes, I'm on a quest for learning until I leave this planet. I want to know more. And I want to learn more about other faiths, other points of view, other things that are, none of us can be everything or understand everyone, but I'm going to try.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it's a struggle, some of it isn't. Most of it's just fascination. The knowledge is so great.
Yeah.
And why shouldn't we empower people through letting them express themselves? That's part of the problem. When you talk about disenfranchised people who don't see themselves in the culture, that's a problem. When they're not reflected in their educational system, or anything positive is said, nothing positive said about them.
Yeah.
I want to leave a legacy behind so that at least I've addressed that to whatever my limited little powers are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the more we just learn about each other's cultures, it just makes everything, your view on the world, that much better and richer and more meaningful. If your world is the size of a pinhead, then,
or if you're just comfy, comfort.
Yeah.
Comfort is the enemy of creativity in a way.
Yeah, I appreciate how positive and forward thinking you are in all of this. Because if you had come on here and just been super pissed with the way things are right now and the way it's been for so long, I would have totally understood that. But you are just so positive and so empowering. And I really appreciate that.
Well, I thank you for that. And I take that from my family and the way I was brought up with my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents. I had the great privilege of having many, many generations around me as a younger person. Even up until 10 years ago, I had grandparents. And I loved them so much, and I loved their stories. I loved my great-grandparents' stories, and I loved history, and I loved them telling the stories from their point of view as, living history in a way. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that always came through from all of them was that you have to be very careful about what you let occupy your time, what you let occupy your energy, what you let use up your life, because you don't have infinite time on Earth.
Yeah.
And though all of this stuff outrages me, it absolutely does, and I would be a liar if I said it didn't. It is appalling, to be frank with you. But I have to also put it in perspective. It's a moment in time. Everybody who's doing all this crap is going to die, just like we all are. Yeah. So I have to take something for myself. I have to give myself blue skies. I have to give myself pleasure. I cannot let it burn me up. And I don't think anybody should, because then you're imbalanced, and in a way your oppressor is won, because you're not doing what you're supposed to do, which is to manifest your beautiful mind and your stories and your heritage and your culture and whatever you've learned in life. Right.
Yeah. So for those at home,
the wrong night, and I'm going to hear the wrong story, because I might have a different tale for a moment. Generally speaking, I try to get back to that place.
Right. Yeah. So for those at home watching who are exhausted from the protesting and posting and talking to their white friends about these different topics.
Or better yet, white people who are struggling with the fact that they have been a part of this oppressive structure and did not know it. Let's talk about that. Because really, at the end of the day, I'm gonna say this. At the end of the day, this is something that mostly affects people of color, but is actually enacted by whites. And we have to be frank about this. We can't pussyfoot around. If we want to change, then it's going to take white Americans dealing with the facts of the structure of this place and doing something about it. And not feeling like, somebody's coming at you like, this is your fault. It's just like, let's just find a way forward. Right. I don't want to create an atmosphere where people are afraid to talk to me or are guilt-ridden or hate me, because sometimes when someone points something out, you become oppressive to them just by pointing it out. But the facts are the facts.
Right.
You know? We didn't hold slaves. We don't maintain a system that imprisons anyone. We don't police anyone. We don't hunt people down and hit them with cars and things we see. We don't crush people's wind out of them. Those are things that are done by forces that are in place to maintain a system. So the system needs to be reformed, and it can be better. I think even the police would benefit from it. We ask them to do things that are ridiculous in a way, to ask the American police forces to deal with homelessness, to deal with the opioid or drug crisis in America, or mental illness, because we're too irresponsible to actually address them directly. We call the police on that. That's not a reasonable thing to ask a police force to deal with at all, really.
Yeah.
So I think we need to rethink the way what we ask. We overtax these people.
Right.
So, you know, and honestly, I'm not anti-police because we need law and order. We do need those things. We absolutely must have that. We have bad people in our culture. We have bad people in our midst. That is a fact. It does not mean that those people then get to do whatever they want or run roughshod or this one bad apple theory. As Chris Rock said, that's like saying, we only have a couple of bad pilots, so, you know, you may land on this airline, you may not.
Right.
We need all of them to go. Because we can hold ourselves to a higher standard, but we should also stop asking them to solve all of our other problems, which really it's not reasonable.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a moment to look at all those things because, you know, they're all interrelated.
Yeah. Sometimes it feels hard to talk about that side because you don't want to come off like you're not supporting the Black community by saying that, yes, the cops
listen,
have their own things as well.
Let's cut the crap. We need police forces. And police forces are, you know, they need to be there. And that does not mean that I don't think that there are abuses, because there obviously are. I have watched more murders on Facebook than I care to discuss right now. And so, but I don't want to get into this blanket, you know, because that you could say the same thing. Well, all Black people are bad because I've seen this, or all cops are bad. You have to be discerning.
Right.
We need order in our society.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go down that path.
No, and I think it could lead to mental health as well. And I think that our police force really needs some mental health care with all that they deal with on a daily basis.
We need to rethink what our police forces are doing, and be supportive in that area as well. You know, yes, punish murderers and abusers. Why should the laws be any different for them? That is what we're talking about. The rest of it needs to be addressed as humanely as possible as we would anyone else.
Right. Yeah.
We need to be very careful that we're only protesting abuse, violence, and murder, not the entire job.
Right. There's a huge separation,
and there has to be.
There has to be. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it would be very childish and very easy to lump it all together, but that's not real.
Yeah. So what are ways in terms of bridge building that on both sides, that everybody listening in can implement to not just post on Facebook that they support or whatever they're feeling, but that we can take action?
Well, I mean, it depends on how radical you want to be. I mean, to me, I find it astonishing that the KKK is still not labeled a terrorist organization.
My friend posted about that on Facebook today. It blew my freaking mind.
Right? Let's really be really careful about how we talk about police reformation, and really clear about what we're talking about. And really be clear that we're talking about murder and abuse and violence and excessive force.
Right.
It is a problem. We can talk about militarization of the American police forces, which is an issue. We don't need paramilitary forces on our citizenry, turn against our citizenry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But at the same time, I also think there needs to be more support for and another look at what we're asking these people to do. I think we're asking too much.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing. But if we're talking about police reformation, if we're talking about the entertainment industry, I think then I'm going to say that I've been bemused by the well wishes, and I would like to see more actionable goals set in place. Not just dialogue, but numbers, goals. I mean, open yourself up. Take different resumes from different places. Do what you say you want to do. You can't say that I rolled my eyes when I saw that Twitter donation, a very substantial donation, and a nice press release, but the boardroom there is predominantly white male. Doesn't work.
Right.
Because our mediums are so powerful. So powerful. They shape everything. But if they're only shaped from one perspective, at the end of the day, who's greenlighting on that level, even what is posted?
Yeah.
Those biases come through.
Right.
We need a mixture of conversations.
Yeah.
That would change a lot. I mean, I've been in this business for a couple of decades, and I don't see the numbers having, increased that. I mean, there's been some great success and some great steps forward, but not enough.
No, it seems like you get those articles on Variety and everything, and it's small percentage points each year. And we're like, okay, we're getting there, but we're constantly just getting there. We need to be there.
Yeah. And I don't want to see, for example, these quotas where they're, just, people resent quotas, and they resent quote unquote being forced to do affirmative action hires, as if, because the subtext to that is I'm hiring substandard, untrained, unworthy people. No, just get enough of them so they all compete.
Right.
Everybody competes.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be done a favor or given something that they don't deserve. It doesn't work. And what we do is handicap people like that.
Right. Yeah. And with the way most jobs are anymore anyway, it's naturally competitive.
Yeah.
So if you're being asked to diversify your interview process, it doesn't mean that that's going to break down the quality of the candidate.
Not at all. In fact, the earlier you start, the better you ensure that. And then, by the way, I mean, there are some, there's some great examples of programs that are already doing things like that. I think the Motion Picture Academy has done a great job with their Academy Gold program. It's a great program. With their interns are incredible, and they're not. I don't want to make it sound like everybody's, just turning their nose up at these things. There's a lot of good work being done.
Right.
There just needs to be more.
Yeah.
I think that many of these, many of our sort of pillar organizations have been focusing on this for a while and doing a good job with it. I think the areas where I'm most disappointed are talent agencies and studios and networks.
Because they're putting the words out that they're supportive, but not following through with the action.
You tell me about this. You tell me about the demographics.
They're not good.
Guys, give me a call. We can talk. I can help you.
Yeah. Seriously. Well, I see that we have a couple questions coming in. So let's head to some audience questions, Philip. So from Sean and Piaget, do you think that the film industry intentionally or unintentionally put a cap on how many Black actors they cast in one particular project? I mean it out in
being dubbed a Black film.
Yeah.
As opposed to a diverse cast. Yeah, I mean, there's a presumption that there's a movie, which is basically a movie with white people in it. And if you put somebody Black in it, they can be the best friend, or there can even be two of them. But that formula has always been, there's a pyramid. White male lead, character white guy friends, maybe one token friend of color, one hot girl, and then a bunch of extras.
Right.
Does that pretty much sum up most of what you've seen, right?
Yeah.
I think, we've got to get past black and white in general and just tell a story. So yeah, you're right. You guys you're totally right. But I'd like to kick that in the ass.
Yeah.
I'd like to just do a science fiction story that has whoever it has in it, and They do what they do.
Right.
They're just people.
Yeah.
But yeah, Hollywood's got, some very old paradigms that it needs to work on.
Mm-hmm.
More so in film, really, honestly, than television.
Yeah. Yeah. And how do those that are selling their project and are in the process of casting, how do they, I don't want to say fight, but how do they really push to cast diversely if they're dealing with people who still have these old school mindsets? Or do they just, is that a point where you have to go, then I'm walking away and I will wait until I find the right place?
Then that comes down to another thing we could talk about, which is,
Yeah.
Finance, which at the end of the day is everything. I'm going to say that I have a couple of things to say about finance. One, I have a generalization to make, which is that most people who come out of film school do not know a damn thing about finance unless they've gone to the START program or have trained specifically to be producers.
Right.
So you have a lot of people who know how to make movies but don't know a thing about money. So if you really want to win, you need to get past saying, my film's black, or my film's this, or my film's Latin, or my film's all female driven, whatever, and get your financial act together. Learn everything you can about film finance and distribution, which really should have been taught in your school, but isn't. And actually, if you're in school right now, demand that it be taught. Because you have a much better job, a much better time convincing someone to give you the millions of dollars you need if you actually make sense to them.
Right.
Your financial plan should be something that you know inside and out. This is why I want the money. This is where it's going to go. This is how you're going to get it back. And even identify your distribution partners. Take a deeper dive into the world of distribution, which is where your money comes back.
Mm-hmm.
If you know, for example, that Netflix only pays $250,000 for the average independent film, you should probably make your budget, make your film for $200,000.
Yeah.
But I've seen too many people who don't know those things. They get the money, they convince somebody to buy into their dream, and then they're stuck with the dream. But the market is telling them, well, if you'd asked me, I'd have told you.
Right.
Or is this genre that you love so much playing right now? Maybe you should hold.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have another film, maybe this is the one to focus on right now. Hold that one for another cycle, because everything's cyclical. It doesn't mean you have to compromise your taste and judgment and values, but you do need to pay attention to the fact that we're in a big multi-billion-dollar business and act accordingly.
Right.
But sometimes some of it's like there's also the hindrance of not having that kind of knowledge. So my message to anyone, whatever your stripe is to learn film finance and distribution and learn it cold. And balance your checkbook, because if you can't pay your rent,
yes,
I'm going to give you $5 million.
Right. Right. I use this app. It's called You Need a Budget. It's great.
We all do.
It's great.
It's real.
Helps you organize everything.
But yeah. I think anybody who's feeling that they're marginalized should, take the opportunity to educate themselves to the highest level, because you're going to be surprised by what you learn, by how surprisingly cooperative people are who have money when you start to make sense to them.
Yeah.
What you want is a long-term relationship, not a one-off. If everybody's happy, you can do it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
If you do it once and you're a robber,
right,
you're done.
Yeah.
Like, I hate you now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you just IMDb shows you like, or films that you love, you'll start seeing how they all just keep working together.
Exactly. And that's the thing, even down to distribution companies and partners like that. Great. This was a great experience. My partners understood what my goals were. They understood how to work with they knew how to handle their finances. And when they needed a little extra money, I understood why they wanted it. And it added value to the proposition. And so I said yes. Or I said, I won't give you all of it, but I gave you this.
Right.
And you learn to be creative within your parameters, which is an absolute must.
Yeah.
That's how you get to, being trusted with lots of money, because you've always been good with it.
Yeah.
So for me, that's an equalizer.
Yeah. Well, Philip, do we have another one? Kalina, what was the first move you made or project you started that helped you get away from the gatekeepers of Hollywood? I think that's a great word for the entertainment industry machine, by the way.
Well, you know, I think I mentioned it. I think the first thing that I really did when I understood that I wanted to tell stories that were driven, you know, one of the first big projects I was involved with was with the Latino comedy trio called Culture Clash. And they'd had a series before, and then they were kind of back to ground zero in theater. And I went into theater, which was not an area that people in Hollywood were that interested in. And these guys were hot. Their point of view was smart, cool, funny, on the edge. You know, the comedy was half in English, half in Spanish. I was like, this is great. And there was nobody at that time in the 90s that gave a shit about this kind of content for television. And so I just thought, fuck it, I'm going to go with it. Excuse my language. And I went with it. Oops. And we went for it, and the show became this huge hit. It wound up being such a hit that they wound up getting signed by WME, and then WME started bringing people in to see the show. I started working with WME to bring in executives, and we wound up getting a series deal. And so they were like, you should quit your job and come work on the series with us. And I'm like, that's a good idea.
Yes, I will do that.
I followed my nose, you know what I mean? I found a way to manifest my taste and my interest and my desire to tell stories and do things that were outside of the box. And I did it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Kalina, for that question. I'm going to ask one, not to make this about me, but just to keep the conversation going here. One of these concepts that I've been writing, I had people ask me, well, why would you be the one to tell this story if it's not my culture? And I said, because there's research and development that I can do on my end to write it, right? And I said, and a goal of mine is to be that showrunner one day who staffs the right people around me to tell that story. So what is your opinion on that? Am I not staying in my lane enough?
No, I mean, honestly, I'm going through that right now because I'm consulting with a channel, and, you know, we're getting, you know, some of the projects we're getting are from, you know, white creators. And, you know, I'm like, I can't turn around and discriminate against them for coming up with an idea that I like. But what I can do is enhance, like you're saying, enhance the project and the package so that you've rounded it out. If you're doing a story that's set in Kenya, you need to bring some Kenyan people on board. I don't care what your research does. You've got to bring in some real Kenyans. If you're a man and you've got a story written about women, it needs some women.
That would be nice.
So if you happen to be the champion in a story, you fall in love with the story as a producer or a creative, then fall in love with it. But just, you know, bring your group together.
Right. Thanks. Yeah, I think that is helpful for people out there who maybe are holding themselves back from writing certain things. And when we can all work together, it's a team effort.
Listen, you know, every film has about at least 100 hands on it, 100 pairs of hands or more.
Yeah.
So why not?
So why not?
Authenticity comes, you know, who's your director? You know, that's where I would say, you know, I don't necessarily want to see a white man telling a story about black women at this point in time, or a man telling a female story in general, or, you know, a black guy telling a Latin. I mean, you know, there's exceptions, and I don't want to get caught up in all this, but I think that you've got to be open-minded. If you're telling a story that's about someone specific, some of those people have got to be directly involved and contributing in a meaningful way.
Right. Which I think is the beautiful part about having that idea in the first place. Even if you know, I'm not the right person to direct it, to properly produce it, but I have this vision for an idea. And if you read the book Big Magic, like, they come and go. If you don't take the idea that comes to you, it's going to go and find its home somewhere else. So find the right people and make it happen.
Find a team, put it together.
Find a team.
Do it.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things too, like one of the things that I think that is interesting and important, across the board, and I think it's one of the great things about Catalyst is that, we're about finding people who have unique voices across the world and finding ways to elevate those voices and giving them access to people so that they can improve their skills and they can learn things they haven't learned before. If you've never been a showrunner, you can't, you got to learn from one.
Right.
Most of the showrunners have been white guys. The guy's got to let the bridge down and teach people something. But if information is going to go everywhere it needs to go. And I also think that, we also have to get to a point where we can't be so racially conscious or gender conscious that we don't just meet as people.
Right. But would you say that what you're saying is different than those people that might say, oh, I don't see color?
That's bullshit. Everybody sees color.
Yeah. Okay. That's how I feel.
In fact, that bothers me because why shouldn't you see color? I mean, why did you just embrace it and enjoy it instead of saying you don't see it because you do?
Right. So then to understand what you're saying.
Saying you don't see color means you don't want to deal with the reality of the United States.
Right. But what you were saying just before that was that you wanted to get to a point where all of this diversifying the writer's room and who you're working with just becomes a natural thing that happens.
Natural doesn't mean that we're not. I'm saying you do need to be conscious of it. You do need to be aware of it. You do need to talk about it. You do need to take your gloves off and stop pussyfooting around. Saying you don't see color means you just want to stay comfortable.
Right.
And it's like shit, Yeah.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be having this conversation if that was actually a possible thing to do.
Right. And again, it's so boring.
Listen, the differences is what make everything interesting. So, let's embrace those.
Absolutely. Well, this has been an amazing chat. Are there any final thoughts you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, I think that, whatever the issues may be at any given time, no matter how dark the moment may be, everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you've got to remember what you think you were put here for and really focus on that and make good use of it. It's your responsibility to take every gift you have and open it up and find a way to make it shine and, do the work inside of yourself that makes you stronger. I mean, I think one of the things that's been interesting about this moment of captivity that we've all been in, and perhaps why we were able to focus on this, abuse that we started off talking about, is that we don't have anything else. We didn't have anything else to think about other than a potentially deadly pandemic. And I think the level of self-reflection that it takes to really be successful as an artist is an ongoing thing, and it is a daunting thing. Most people would rather just be comfortable than actually struggle with what we're all made up of. And I think most of us are made up of so many complicated things that we don't ever actually get to the bottom of our full personalities in our lifetime. I mean, It's a kind of a strange, magical thing to be such a complex being that there's still mysteries inside of you when you're 80 years old. I think that's kind of that different parts of you come out by surprise. You're like, what? Oh my God, that reminds me of, so many things about ourselves as humans are not known and strange, or are sort of half known. Or we sort of take a few things at work and don't worry about the rest. And I had this thought that I want to do this, and I realized it took too much, so I'm just not going to do it. And then time goes by and you realize you should have. I just don't want people to waste their lives. That's really what I get to. Tell your stories.
Tell your stories. Because
we are storytellers, and that is what we were put here to do. And let us share those things. Let's all get around the campfire and tell our stories.
I love it. I love it. One year we'll be back in Duluth able to do that.
We'll be back campfire or two.
Yep.
Yes, we will.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Telling a different story about our country. I think this is, one of the things that is, tremendous about the country is that even though it goes through upheavals like many others, it also has the resilience to get on the other side of things. And, struggling to get better is not unpatriotic. It's, in fact, the most patriotic thing you can do. To keep striving towards the things we say we're made of, the things we say we believe in, this Constitution, this flag, all these things that we are about, then we have to take everybody there.
Yes.
It's a beautiful moment to rise to that occasion. We've done it many, many times.
Yeah.
And we'll do it again. And so I think this is a great opportunity, and I'm proud of what I've already seen happening, and I think much more is going to happen.
Yeah.
So I don't think this is a dark moment. It's a moment where we're actually confronting darkness, and we can't be afraid. Let's keep on rooting it out. Let's keep on stopping it. Let's keep on, preventing more of these atrocious moments from happening.
Absolutely. 100%. Thank you so much. That's the perfect way to end this discussion. Right. Thank you for your time. Good to talk to you too, everyone at home. Stay tuned. We'll have some more webinars coming up soon and more important topics like this as well. Have a good night, everyone.